Mike Bell, I enjoyed every minute of the draft after we left Friday from Flowery Branch and talking to Bijan Robinson. Saturday was great, and we're going to talk plenty about what the Falcons got. Here's what I believe, all right? We got not only added star power in this draft, but we also filled needs. And for everything that Mike talked about, we better go get a guard. They went and got a guard, and a very good guard. I think you guys are going to really like Matthew Bergeron. He is a road grader. Talked to some scouts over the weekend about this kid from Syracuse. I'm telling you, and I didn't know a lot about him. This was not somebody that I had scouted or looked at film, and they were like, Dukes, you guys are going to love this guy. He run blocks the hell out of things. And Mike, he's got a lot of potential, a lot of upside. So if you want to go ahead, Mike, and put this guy as your starter,
plug him in,
as your guard that you've been worried about,
get him to work.
Let's do it.
Yes. And again, I did not know much about Bergeron other than seeing him come up on those mock drafts all the time where we picked him in that range. And some people said, why do we move up? Because the Jets wanted him. That's why we moved up. The Jets were interested. The Jets went and got another guy that played center, but that's why we made the move. Well, there was a sense of interest from other teams.
And I'm fine with that, right? We talked about this before the draft. Whatever your convictions tell you, like, I'm sold on a guy, let's go get him. Don't play around with it. Don't wait and say, oh, well, he'll be there. If that's who you want, you go get it. So, Mike, yeah, that's what they did in the second round. In the third round, obviously, Zach Harrison, Ohio State defensive lineman. A lot of people talk about his size, his length. I think he comes in, Mike, and helps us. To what degree, I cannot tell you that.
Yeah, and this is the only time that there's only one pick in this draft that I kind of went meh on, and I'll tell you why. Got a couple of good buddies who went to Ohio State, so I lean on those guys for my Buckeye intel. And then when you look at the scouting report, it kind of says the same thing. This guy literally has, as they used to say in the old days, body by Fisher. They used to make the bodies for Cadillac. Anyway, the dude's built like a blank house, and the dude looks the part. And he looks exactly what you'd expect from an edge rusher, but he's never lived up to the five-star expectations for whatever reason at Ohio State. He had to fill in, obviously take over for Chase Young, and those are some seriously big shoes to fill. I was more interested, if I'm honest, in Byron Young from Tennessee at that spot. That's what I would have taken.
Now,
that's my only beef.
If you want to say, all right, we needed more depth at this position, right? We talked about edge and defensive line, and if you ultimately tell me this first season, because everybody's supposed to get better, and then some that don't, they won't last. But, Mike, if you told me this is a depth play, right, for Grady, for Taquan Graham, for Onyemata, and he is going to have a role, but he is going to be a guy that's going to add depth to our defensive line and hopefully learn, because, again, you can't teach 6'6" and a wingspan of, 7 foot. I'm okay with that. And I agree with you. If you say, well, Dukes, why did they take him in the third round? This is where I think they may have targeted him. I don't know what the grade was on him for the Falcons. But, Mike, I absolutely love the Clark Phillips pick, cornerback out of Utah. You may not know a lot about him, but this kid's a playmaker. Playmaker.
Yeah, I'm one of the best players on the West Coast.
And I just think, again, you go, well, fourth-round pick, don't get caught up in that. This kid was an impact player at Utah, Mike. And the thing that I love is he's a game day player. This isn't somebody that, you talk about, well, he's pretty good at practice. Go watch a Utah game. You will see this young man making plays all over the field.
And the knock on this guy is his size, and that's what kept him from being the elite. Well, I got two words for Falcon fans: Brent Grimes. We had a guy back in the day who was an undersized corner. He was listed at 5'10", as tall as I am. I'm 5'8" in heels. But this guy is an athlete, and Brent Grimes could jump out of the room, Carl. I mean, literally out of the building. So, that's what you're looking for. He's got a tremendous athleticism. He can pop, can play run support. This is everything you're looking for, and that's why the only thing that was keeping him down was the size element.
So you go get another corner. I think he's a slot player, but we'll see how, our new defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, decides how they're going to use him. But I think he's great in the slot. And the fact that we need to create more turnovers. This is a young man that had multiple pick sixes. You need those kind of guys. Then, Mike, they go get a guy, and I think people are sleeping on this pick too. DeMarco Hellams from Alabama. When you play at Alabama, you play at Alabama.
Right.
You started Alabama, you started Alabama. And it's not as if he hasn't been in big games. And I think DeMarco Hellams is going to come in here and also potentially make some hay as far as, okay, this is a guy we're going to be able to use, even though he was a seventh-round pick.
Look, he'll do a little bit of special teams in the start. He's got, again, it's got all the size, all the traits. Free safety is what he projects for. But When you break down the film, and I always go by Daniel Jeremiah stuff, they always joke around, Carl, eye discipline. Sometimes he gets caught looking the wrong way or looking in the backfield. So just something that hopefully he can be coached up. But as you said, I mean, if somebody's played and started at Alabama, I think we can work with him, right?
No doubt. Javon Gwynn was our last pick. That was our 7th-round guard pick out of South Carolina.
A leader on that South Carolina team and a guy that started.
I'm going to trust what I've heard from the folks at South Carolina. This guy's beloved. Like by teammates, coaching staff, okay? There were some guys who went in the NFL, Jalen Carter, who wasn't necessarily loved by the coaching staff. We now know that. So I'm going to take their word, Mike, and maybe he can come in. 7th round, you always kind of cross your fingers and say, all right, can he help us? Is he a developmental project? Either way, he is a guy that ends up getting picked from the Falcons. Here's where I'm at. We got needs filled, and we added star power. Guys, the most interesting pick in this draft was Bijan Robinson. Period.
I mean, obviously, we need to score more points.
Thank you, Art. Period. And the reason is simple, because the metrics told everybody not to do it. The Falcons said, screw that. We're going to do what's best for our football team and our franchise, and we're going to get a guy that's a difference maker. You know I love the pick. I've been talking about it for weeks now on end. But at the end of the day, Mike, if you were to tell me the 2 most interesting picks, maybe Anthony Richardson, and I don't even know if he plays this year. But for us, this Bijan pick, man, the most interesting thing that happened in the draft, and everybody around the country is talking about it.
Right. And we covered the Jalen Carter versus, Bijan dynamic on Friday's show live from Flowery Branch. And I don't know what to tell you guys. For years, I've railed against the organization, whoever the GM was, for not taking Georgia Bulldogs. And I had this argument with a couple of guys over the weekend. I was going to lose my mind over it. They decided they weren't going to go with Carter. You want to know why Jalen Carter's not here? Talk to Jalen Carter. He's responsible for why he's not here. The franchise has had a lot of high-profile blow-ups in the first round. So they don't want to go down that road. So talk to him. And wish, like the Eagles, they should call them the Beagles, okay? Because they got so many dogs on that team, Carl. And that's good. And they're good. And Howie Roseman does a great job. But Carter was the only guy that really had a shot of being here. You might have tried to trade up into the bottom of the first round. And maybe, Carl, they did try to get Nolan Smith. We'll never know. But after that, anytime you wanted a dog, you were out of sequence, or it was a reach, or they were too far down. And that's the way that cookie crumbled. I'm not making excuses, because I want more dogs on this team. But that's the way it went down.
Yeah, listen, I'm not as overly sensitive about this as some people are when it comes to why don't they draft dogs. I got the same thing. I was out at one of my favorite cigar bars on Friday night, and I got this. Why aren't they drafting more dogs? Well, I don't know how to explain, like, if you want these guys to just line up in the draft and be there when the Falcons pick,
right.
I just, sometimes it's timing. This particular situation, specifically about Jalen Carter, and I said this to you guys, did I not tell you they weren't going to take him? Mm-hmm. They weren't going to take him. I said this, and then they didn't take him. He was on the board. They had an opportunity to take him if they wanted to. The reasoning is simple. I told you there were too many immaturity issues with Jalen Carter. Now, maybe he goes to the Eagles and has great success because they're built for it, Mike, and they got a lot of veterans in that locker room and guys that are no nonsense. Great. But for us, I can't concern myself with who we didn't take.
Nope.
I'm going to pull an Arthur Smith here. Can't coach him. Can't worry about guys I didn't coach. I can't worry about players to cheer for that are not going to be on our team.
No, and we said this on Friday's show, and look, maybe they're both going to be successful. It doesn't have to be the zero-sum game I talked about. Both guys can succeed. But now I get on with it. There's no sense in being, you can bellyache all you want at the barbershop, at the sports bar. Don't bother me with this, okay? I'm familiar with the subject. I crunch the numbers. We've drafted 9 Georgia Bulldogs in like 30 freaking years. But in this case, the only one you had the shot was going to be Jalen Carter. After that, then it's the luck of the draw that Carl and I just explained.